Hello and welcome to the IRN-CRU podcast, a podcast made in Scotland by NFL lovers, and this is your Week 15 review crew, and I'm joined by some of our finest crew members tonight. So joining me first up in the Winter Wonderland, our very own Kilted Texan, fresh off his very own bye week and his jet-setting trips to Houston. How are you doing, Graham?
Yeah, doing fine. Still getting acclimatised to this cold snap that we're experiencing just now, but I'm sure I'll get through it.
Good stuff. And you mentioned just offline that you're nice and refreshed. You managed to get caught up on some jobs, so you went on a bye week the same as the Texans and got yourself up to date.
If the team's on a bye, I'm on a bye. That's the way I look at it. So,
makes sense. Absolutely makes sense. So joining myself and Graham tonight, we have our very own cheesehead who may not be as bright and bushy-tailed and refreshed as Graham. We've got Liam. How are we doing, Liam?
Yeah, not too bad. It's not too bad. Yes, not quite the weekend result we're wanting, but I'm sure we'll get onto that. But hey ho, it's on to another week.
That's it, mate. On to the next Sunday, we'll see what happens. You mentioned obviously we will get on to your Packers during our chat over the Week 15 review. Again, we'll just get fired straight into it, guys. Lots of good games this week, and I suppose let's just rip the Band-Aid off, Liam. Let's kick off with your Packers. So Packers and the Lions played out a thrilling 34-31 win for the Detroit Lions in Detroit. Close game in the end up. I think it looked as though for a little bit of the first half that the Lions were going to do what they've done to most teams and run into that big lead. But the Packers came absolutely thumping back on the back of another 3 Josh Jacobs rushing touchdowns. It just seems like he is the driving force behind that Packers offense just now. I suppose, Liam, you're the man for this one. What did you make of the game?
Yeah, you kind of touched on it there. We kind of, from a Packers standpoint, we came out pretty slow on offense. I think Love had like 30 yards or something like that in the first. I don't know if it was first half or first quarter. I can't remember now exactly. It's been so long. I've tried to blank from my memory. It's been long ago. But yeah, we just couldn't get going really to start with. But that's been a kind of. I think I've said it many times on this podcast now. We've seemed to be very, very hot and cold. One part of our offense does well, our defense does well. We never kind of quite put it fully together, and it kind of played out again in this game. I think our defense did all right in the first quarter. I suppose getting to 17 points was not bad for the Lions that were getting much more of the ball compared to us. And then we just couldn't keep it going for the second half, even though our offense eventually came onto a bit of a game. But I suppose it's really the Dan Campbell show. I think 4 of the 5 fourth downs they got going for it all the time. They're even at the very end when they're doing that one for the kick when they didn't really need to do it. It was just kind of for the clock management, I suppose. They're just a hard team to stop, aren't they? The Lions, they are if not the best team in the league. I think it's got to be thereabouts, if not now. Even with all the give them credit as well. They had loads of injuries, I think, as well, and going into this game, and they still, are they're a well coached team, aren't they? We all know that now. So, it was a tough loss. Coming close, I suppose, in the end. But I think if I was to put my neutral hat on, the best team won. I think in the end. But from a Packers point of view, it's better than how our first outing went with them. We managed to score more, get some points on the board in the end, so made it a bit closer, but. We've still not kind of got that thing off our back yet of beating a kind of a winning record, or have we beaten a winning record yet? I think the Packers. I think we've lost now to the Lions, obviously, and the Vikings and the Eagles. We just don't seem to have, which is coming into playoff time. We need to start, getting these, being able to beat these bigger teams. So yeah, not all doom and gloom for the Packers, but it's we've got some work to do. Put it that way.
Yeah, that's the thing. I don't think the Packers are kind of flying into the playoffs like they did last season. Like when they went down to Dallas and they beat the Cowboys at AT&T. I don't think that was a surprise to anyone. And then they punch the 49ers in the mouth, only to kind of throw it away themselves. So they did really fly into the playoffs on the back of a good run last year. Love started to kind of pick up. Doesn't seem to be kind of working that way for him just now, as you mentioned, Liam. So there is definitely some work to do for Matt LaFleur and his offense on that front. Graham, obviously, the Lions probably contributed a little bit to their own downfall. We know Dan Campbell is a 4th and 1 guy. He lives and dies by the sword on there. Do you think that was the kind of contributing factor for the Packers getting back into it? Was really just the fact that the Lions kept giving them short fields, whether it be on 4th and 1s or whether there was turnovers, that kind of thing? Do you think that kind of contributed to it, or do you think it was just the Packer, obviously Josh Jacobs, just kind of doing what he's been doing so successfully the last kind of few weeks?
I think you can fall foul of being hyper aggressive in this league, and I think that's where the Lions can find themselves sometimes. You know, like, you are a good football team and you are going to get results. Maybe you don't have to put the statement on it the way they do by going for all these 4th downs. You know, there's absolutely no need for you to do that in certain situations. And if you keep giving teams short fields, it's going to build confidence in that team, and then teams can take shots at you. Like Liam said, the Lions are a very well coached team as well. They don't need, they just don't need to do this. When I think back to the first game out in Houston we went to see was against the Lions, and it was amazing that we managed to stifle them for so long, but you can't expect that to continue against this team because they're so aggressive. They will score points and they will find ways to break you down and stuff. So the fact that the Packers managed to get back late in the game or later in the game was a huge factor on how Green Bay have progressed this season from when we played them at the start of the year. Like, I feel we should have beat Green Bay, but it was our probably hyper aggressiveness and needing to instead of running out the clock, we're running plays. You know, you're passing it and stuff. So I think that the Lions could lead to their own downfall by being hyper aggressive. You see it in the locker room after the games, how like hyped up those guys are. You have to pull them guys off the ceiling, you know. Yeah. So don't allow other teams back into the games like you did Green Bay, because Green Bay are a very capable team. Like, you'll know that, Liam, by how much you watch them closely. And off of what they did last season, very capable. So, and with it being divisional and the NFC North being as such a good division, you know, the fact that I think Green Bay could maybe clinch a playoff berth this week.
I think we just, the Rams go away. We kind of need one more win and we're basically in. I think I read some odds like before this game we had 99% chance. After this game we've got 99% chance. It didn't make much of a difference for the playoff standings. It's just there's no chance of the division now, basically. Really, I think. Yeah,
but what I mean is, like, you might meet them again in the playoffs. Now, if you've given them shown them any sort of kink in the armor, it's just going to take one more game to find out how to break the armor off completely. So maybe you should just put teams like Green Bay to the sword the easiest way possible. You know, kick and make them play the long field game. Don't give them the short field. That's just an opinion of mine. I would much rather like teams were more cutthroat in that manner instead of trying to flex muscles when they don't actually have to.
Yeah. I think that's actually kind of one of the points I was kind of looking at, what you just said there, Graham, and just having a quick look on Instagram as well. So we've got Alex Miller, who has said as well, can we all just agree that the Lions are taking it all home? So I think we know where Alex is looking. So he's definitely in Super Bowl or bust mode now for the Lions. But exactly what you said there, Graham, I think the way that it's looking like the standings, especially for the NFC North, you're probably looking like the winner's going to be one of Minnesota or the Lions, especially with them coming up to playing each other again. I think they actually play in week 18. And again, if the results keep going the way they're going, then there's a chance that could be for the division. Green Bay obviously playing out for third, still stick-ons for the playoffs, but there is a very good chance that these two teams could meet again when it comes to a divisional round or it comes to the championship round perhaps as well, if Green Bay kind of do start to kind of figure some things out. As Graham says there, Liam, do you think that there's a chance that maybe I think he's ran them close twice this year? Do you think there is a chance that you use maybe that third time in the playoffs, you can get them?
I suppose there's always hope. It's always hard to beat a team 3 times, isn't it, in a row? So there is that hope there. But like I said at the start, I think for Green Bay, it's been all about, we've just never quite, as you say, never quite hit the kind of heights we hit in the last season yet. We just don't seem to quite, we haven't put it all together yet, which is either good that we can maybe do it, or it's a concern that we still haven't done it coming into week 15. You know, it's one of those ones where which way is it going to fall? It's just who we are now, that we're like, as you know, we are a good team. We can put up points, but we need every side of the offense, defense, and special teams, every part of it to contribute. Really, you know, we just don't seem to do it either for a half or a quarter. One seems to drop off for whatever reason it may be. So yeah, if we can figure that out, yes. But then again, the Lions are going to be even harder to beat next time in some ways if they've got all their players, some of their players back. So but you know, it'll be a divisional game. We know each other very well, so you never know these divisional matches how they go. There's always wacky results at some point. So
yeah, I think one of the impressive things that I kind of took out of the game is how quiet Amon-Ra St. Brown was from the Lions.
If you look at the box score for the Lions, like even the running backs, like we didn't give them much. You know, if you just stood back and looked at that, you know, you'd have thought we'd have done pretty well. Which in some ways we still put up 31 points, which is not a bad going, but you know, it's just that hyper aggressiveness of the Lions to sustain those drives, you know, when they can, and if you know, when it works, it's great. But I suppose as you're saying there, you know, when it doesn't, it can be a wee bit of their downfall to some degree. You know, we got by that I think even last year, and we played them when we kind of came onto the game in the Thanksgiving game last season, when you know they were went for a fake punt and we turned it over and stuff like that. You know, Dan Campbell's known for doing. So it's just whether that stuff comes back to bite him eventually or not. But fair play to be able to you know, call those plays and go for it. You know, it takes some bit of metal to do it. You know.
Liam, do you think that Green Bay is maybe not quite where they are this year so far because they lost like Jordan Love early on? You know, that's.
I think that's definitely, you know, like I think Love is only starting to, you know, he's only really healthy the last week or two, really, you know, or healthy as you can be in the NFL at this stage of the season. You know, like he had that kind of interception run when he first kind of came back. You know, he's throwing an interception every single game, I think, and he's finally stopped that. So I think there's a bit of that. You know, he's not really had a full season yet to really get going. You know, so whether that will come, you know, and the same if we've had loads of drops as well throughout. You know, or as much as a wide receivers, we've got loads of players that can be good on their day. We do have lots of drops as well, which is not helping. So if we can clean all that up. And you know, Love can, you know, he made some really nice throws in that game. The Lions, I can't remember, it was one to Watson. He scrambled in the pocket and kind of pushed up in the pocket and threw it. You know, so he can do it. You know, I'm not worried about that as such, but it's just all about consistency. Can we get that consistency really, really going? I think.
Yeah, I think the consistency is going to be key because you look at guys you mentioned, the kind of receivers as well. Like Jaden Reed seems to be total chalk and cheese like this week. He only had one target. He didn't get any receptions. Whereas there's been times in the season, and again, I know this purely because I'm a fantasy owner. I love and Reed. I got the two of them as a stack, and it was like there's games where you're absolutely loving Jaden Reed because he's getting loads of targets, he's getting those touchdowns, and then you look at this week and he's got one target type thing, and it's Christian Watson that's away. And
it's a double-edged sword because it's good to be able to have those options. You know, Dobbs wasn't playing in this game either. He's still out with concussion, so he's still to come back. You know, and as you say, Watson put up the stats, and even Wicks had a nice game, you know, finally as well. So in some ways it's good you can spread that ball around and you know, keep the defense on their toes. You know, you don't have a main number one as such, but it's just, you know, like I say, the drops have been a wee bit concerned throughout the season as well. So can we clean that up, get the players to really, you know, take that step on, you know, and really get kind of flying.
Yeah, no, definitely. I think again, kind of one of the more kind of impressive stats was that I'm just looking at how many times Love and Goff are both sacked. Both of them was just one apiece. So it goes to show the offensive lines are kind of doing their job. I think even from Green Bay's perspective, we know how difficult, even with all the injuries, that Detroit Lions line is to stop. They've managed to protect Jordan Love pretty well. Obviously, one sack kind of speaks for itself. And the same on the Lions side as well. Goff just seems to be, week after week, we're talking about how much protection he's getting in there. He's getting time to kind of make those passes. He's not getting put under loads of pressure. Again, going back to kind of your point fairly, Liam, if the Lions aren't the best team in the league, I'd be struggling. They've got to be up there, but I'd actually be struggling to see who's better than them in that front.
Yep, totally.
So, no worries, right. We'll leave that one there. We'll put the Band-Aid back on, Liam, and we will move on that one. So, I'm just going to touch on a couple of games this week, guys. Keep it nice and light, and then we'll rattle through the rest of the results. So, I think from Sunday, there's really only one result and one game we can talk about. It's the highest scoring game of the season. We had the Buffalo Bills going into Los Angeles to play the LA Rams, and at SoFi Stadium. Probably, don't think it's unfair to say, probably looking at one of the upsets of the weekend, with the Rams coming out 42-44 winners. I think the Rams were leading for most of this game, to be honest. I think it only got close in the kind of fourth quarter, kind of late on. But Josh Allen just probably solidified his MVP vote in this one. Graham, just three passing touchdowns, 3 rushing touchdowns. I mean, if you're obviously a team in the AFC, you could potentially be looking at facing the Buffalo Bills. Over the last few weeks, I mean, how do you stop a guy like Josh Allen?
Yeah, they're not the same Buffalo Bills we've seen earlier on in the season, that's for sure. Very difficult man to stop. He seems to be finding his groove just now, and that's quite scary, because this is the time of year that you really don't want MVP candidates or whispered people from the beginning of the season really finding form heading into the playoffs when potentially you're going to play them. And most likely with them being high seeds, you're going to play them in their arena, which they don't need any more help. But like as the Rams have shown, if you can edge them away from where they're comfortable playing you can maybe get a result. Play them that way. Yeah, the numbers he was putting up, mega impressive. I think, well, you being a fantasy owner, Studs, like if you'd had him, I think, did he not score the most fantasy points that's ever been scored by a single player game week or something?
He must have been up there. He was 50-odd points in one of my leagues.
Yeah, ridiculous. Just on that scope, he's probably been pushed for being MVP from a lot of people's weeks. But yeah, the Bills have been getting better and better as the weeks go on as well. I still think though that, well, when I seen this game coming up, I had the Bills pegged to win it. Just looking at it before the ball had even been snapped, I had the Bills down to win it. I thought they've been carrying some good momentum in, but looking at the numbers, when you look at the Rams, Puka Nacua has just started lighting up a wee bit. For the Rams, he's finding his feet again. Absolute solid target there. Stafford obviously trusts him heaps, and he can do a lot of things in the rushing game and also in the passing game. So there's always opportunity in these games, and they obviously found a mismatch there because did he not get almost 200 yards in receiving or something?
Yeah, it was 162 yards and 12 targets.
Yeah, ridiculous. So they obviously found a wrinkle there that can be exploited against this team. But yeah, Bills looking good. Bit of a hiccup for them, but they'll come back from this. They'll be all right.
Yeah, I think interesting one again. Not what to state in the preview crews toes in this one, but the Bills and the Lions are playing each other this weekend. So I think that's definitely going to be the one that everybody's got their eye on, to be honest. But again, flip side, also we're talking about how great Josh Allen was, Liam. There, Graham's mentioned it. Puka Nacua. I mean, if you've seen I think it was his first catch of the day where he gets those toes down. How he manages to get those toes down is just unbelievable. Everybody thought he was out, and then you seen the replay. You just seen the 2 toes down. The guy's just unreal. Is he solidifying himself as up there with your Justin Jeffersons and your Jamar Chases in this world? Is he putting himself in that conversation?
I think he is. I think he is now. Some of the catches in that game were, even out of some of the other catches, it was just a crazy game for crazy catches, really. But Nakua's like he's a different type of receiver. He's a bit bulkier. He's a bit more, not tight endish, but kind of like a tight end in some ways. He's over 6 foot. He's got some beef to him. That's why you can use him in the rushing game, and he's electric at that as well. So he's just something different that I suppose not really any other team has. So to use, now he's getting a bit healthier, and he's had a bit of knocks throughout this season. Can they push on a bit? The Rams, they kind of did this last year as well, where they kind of started to get a bit of momentum near the end, and then think it was all a bit too late, really. But now they've got you've still got Cup sitting there. That's really scary. It's talking about Nacua all this time. Still Cooper Cup going off as well. He scored 90 odd yards as well. So
yeah,
it's when they're on their game, they're quite a fun team to watch. As McVay has done in the past. They're always can be exciting teams to see. It's just whether they can keep it going. Because they kind of need to. Don't know if they need to quite win out to get into the playoffs, but they need to get close to it, I think, now. So yeah.
Yeah, I think they're hot in the tails of the Seahawks, to be honest, in the NFC West. But exactly what you were saying there, they're certainly in the hunt for one of those playoff spots. They're putting a run together. Now they've got all their offensive weapons back. Obviously missing Nacua, missing Cup early on in the season. Everyone back healthy now. Stafford's got a full array. You've got the running game with Kyren Williams. Well, probably they've got a young defence, and their defence has actually been pretty good up until obviously this weekend, because they've given up 42 points. And do you think there's someone you would want to see in the postseason, Graham, if you were in that NFC team?
They could be one of that sneaky teams, as we see, they're getting hot just now. Most likely with the record they'll end up with, they'll probably have to go on the road, which a lot of people will prefer to do, is get them on the road. But I can't remember their record on the road or not. Some teams actually have been playing better away from home. So that's the ones when they get on a hotter streak, when they get on this, that you want to avoid, obviously getting them on the road. But it's always fun to see them there. I like Matty Stafford. I think he's a really good quarterback, and he just loves to sling it. And we're having his weapons back. You see he's getting more comfortable. Like, his passer rating was through the roof there. I think it was in 132 or something. So it's, when he's vibing, and he's clicking, and he's finding guys, and he gets comfortable in that pocket. He just starts slinging it about. Disappointing day for both defenses, obviously giving up the numbers that they both gave up. The film rooms won't be very popular there. There'll be a lot of nitpicking going on. But when you're up against high-powered offenses, at some point something's got to give. It can't always be a defensive war and low scoring. Sometimes two teams just can go off, and we were lucky enough that this was the game that went off. And like you say, not taking away from the preview crew at all, but I think the Chiefs will have a close eye on the next game with the Bills against the Lions.
Yeah.
The Chiefs will be doing a lot of homework there, because they're going to fancy themselves their chances of getting back to the big one. The baddies. You'll know that, studs. They'll be wanting
Absolutely.
to get back. But this will be a good benchmark to see not only probably a road maybe through the Bills, but also if they get their road through the Lions, maybe potentially in the Super Bowl. So there's a lot of homework to be had here from teams looking in. So
No, absolutely. I mean, obviously, I mentioned that they're playing Detroit, so they're actually travelling into Detroit for that game. I had a quick wee look at the Bills' schedule there. after that, it does soften up for the Bills without being disrespectful, but it's New England, the Jets, and then New England again to finish the season out. So you're expecting them to win those 3 games. This is probably the next big test for the Bills. As you said, as a Chiefs fan, I'm absolutely going to be watching it. You're looking to see how does a team, as I mentioned, stop Josh Allen. He's the start of the season. They're trading Diggs to the Texans. Everybody's worrying about what weapons he's got. Doesn't seem to matter. It's very reminiscent of Mahomes last season, where it was like, right, what weapons has Mahomes got other than Travis Kelce type thing. Josh Allen's in a very similar situation to Mahomes, but it seems to be just very much I'll do it myself type thing, and he's finding those passes to the receivers. He had nearly 180 odd rushing yards himself against the Rams as well. So really taking away from, James Cook was unbelievably quiet in this game from a Bills perspective. Allen just seems to be really motoring at the right time as well. And I think, as I mentioned, obviously his MVP vote. I think you're looking at probably it's between him and Saquon Barkley, and we all know that the running backs don't get that award, being brutally honest. So for me, I think it's very much Josh Allen's MVP to lose. He'd need to have 4 horrific weeks now to lose the MVP on the back of the season he's had. Right, so any final thoughts on this game, guys, before we move on?
I don't think so. Well, I think the only thing I was going to say, talking about weapons, Cooper seems to be getting on to get a game. I know he's for the Bills. He's kind of getting more integrated now. So if he can come even more into, he's definitely a wide receiver one. He can be. So that's another factor to wrinkle to factor in for all the defenses.
Absolutely. I actually missed out on Cooper because I was looking at the touchdowns, to be honest, but 95 yards on 6 targets, as you say, he's going to get more and more comfortable. I think he's seen how comfortable he was as well against, was it the 49ers, where in the snow he just has that wee lateral back to Allen as he runs by him. So I think he's definitely finding his feet. And as you said there, Liam, if you can get him more integrated into that offense, we've seen how great Cooper can be at the Raiders, the Cowboys and the Browns. I think he'll absolutely be a weapon for them as they head into the playoffs and getting him more comfortable. I think it's just a case of can you keep him healthy, because he's always had wee niggles wherever he's been. So it's just, can you maybe wrap him in cotton wool and keep him for the playoffs? I don't know, especially with the less challenging games, shall we say, coming up. But it'll be interesting to see. So moving on, then the next one I thought to touch on before we just briefly rattle through the scores. Last night's Monday Night Football, we had the Bengals travelling into Jerry World to take on the Cowboys. We had the Simpsons cast on this one as well. I don't know if you've seen any clips of that. But we had the Bengals winning 27-20 on this one. So again, pretty even. Cowboys took the lead in the first quarter. Bengals came bouncing back. This one all come down to the tail end of the game, where we had, I think it was a tie game, and Micah Parsons, I think it was, blocks the punt. The ball's bouncing towards a Dallas player. I can't remember who it was. And for whatever reason, he tries to catch it as it bounces up towards him. Instead of just getting out the road, let that ball die, and the Cowboys get possession and a good part of the field, potentially run out the clock for a field goal win. Bengals take over and Jamar Chase does the rest with a long touchdown. Graham, I don't know if you've seen any of this game or you've seen any of the clips of the Simpsons cast. What do you? I mean, we know the Cowboys have been a tire fire this year, but what do you make of this one?
Yeah, I seen that that play, and you could just see like every one of his teammates knew what he'd done, like right away. There's a bit of you has to feel sorry for him, because he's obviously just wanting to gather possession. You don't know if he's wanting to make a play on it. You just don't know what he's wanting to do with it. But just leave it alone and win the game. But there's been a lot of mistakes in a lot of games this year, and this just goes down to that being mentally strong through the whole game. Not even letting the mental side of the game tire out, because when you're also tired on that side, you make these fundamental mistakes which lead to the team getting beat. The Cowboys have been stinking at home for a long time, and these are the contributing factors to that. That was one of the games I was up at. I was up at AT&T Stadium with the Texans against the Cowboys, and oh my goodness, they were they want Jerry out. They want Jerry to sell the team. They were absolutely they were ravenous, the Dallas fans, at how bad they were. Honestly, they were drooling and everything. They were fighting with themselves. I've never seen anything like it, and I've been to us when we're really bad, but yeah, you just can't make those mistakes. Maybe a bright thing for them, CeeDee Lamb seems to be getting back into his flow, seems to be putting up some numbers again. A little too late, but always good to keep him ticking over and doing what he does, for when Dak will come back. But yeah, that's like I love to see it, when the Cowboys are doing rotten stuff. But I absolutely feel for their fans just now, because we've been there and it's not fun. Especially when it's the fact that you want everyone, you want a clean house at the top level, you want new ownership and all that. And yeah, it's tough. I do feel a little bit sorry for the Cowboys just now.
Yeah, I think that is the thing. Obviously, we don't want to kick them when they're down type thing, because obviously we know P. Stu and Dan and stuff like that. These guys will be hurting big time. There were some bright lights last night. We know the Bengals defense has been killing them all season, and Rico Dowdle certainly tried to kind of take advantage of that. He probably had his biggest game of the season, 131 yards, as you mentioned. CeeDee Lamb looked like the CeeDee Lamb we all know and we all want to see. We don't want to see the CeeDee Lamb bitching at Dak in the sidelines. We want to see him making these big plays, having big games. But I found the guy's name was Amani Oruwari, was the guy that muffed the punt. So again, I've seen a few things online today. His teammates are very much rallying around him, which is obviously what you want to see. You don't want to see the guy blamed. It's been a horrific season. So as you mentioned, Graham, there's been a lot more to this season than that one muff punt for the Cowboys. They really have been awful at home in particular. But Liam, Bengals obviously flipping it onto them, so they're now 5-8 in the AFC. Obviously, Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, we know what these guys can do. To the bet, I suppose the Cowboys' season is done now. I think officially they can't make the playoffs. Can the Bengals still make a late push here?
Well, I suppose it's just been that. Some ways you want to see, yes, because Burrow is playing amazing football. He's having to play amazing football. He's having to keep up with his defense, giving away so many points. And their offensive side, they've got, as you say, they've got Chase, they've got Higgins. Oh, Higgins was quiet this game, but they've got Chase Brown on running back as well. So they're a powerful offense. As we've seen, they keep having to come from behind or try and come from behind. It's just their defense. I just can't. We just always come back to it, don't we? Can they somehow fix it in the last 4 weeks to some degree, or not fix it, make it towards the average, maybe, shall we say? Just make it slightly better. I was having a quick glance at what's their schedule like. They've got the Titans next and the Browns, so they're 3 winnable games next two. But then they've got the Broncos and the Steelers, which it's going to be harder defenses to go up against. So as well, the offenses can keep up, I think, with their kind of porous defense. That'll be the challenge.
No, definitely. I'm looking at, obviously they're 5-8 now, so try to get Broncos are the team in that 7th spot and 8-5. So interesting that they've still got to play the Broncos. You get the Ravens the Texans game, as you know, you're sitting at 8-5, but you'll win your division there. You've got the Ravens and the Chargers sitting at 8-5 as well. So they're 3 games back. They win out. Obviously, they then beat the Broncos. That's them 2 games back. It could probably a slim chance. It's still the Lloyd Christmas for Dumb and Dumber that Stu's probably kind of clinging on to for them. But yeah, I think it's for me. I probably think it's too little, too late for them. But it's probably. I'm going to say this even with a smile on my face. It's probably a shame that the Bengals have been as bad, because I think Burrow probably is in that MVP conversation if the Bengals have a better record. Because the guy has been their shining light this year. He's literally done everything, probably everything Josh Allen's done with the Bills, just he doesn't have the record to kind of show for it. I suppose, can I bring it around just briefly on a kind of MVP chat then? Graham, do you think that Burrow, even with the losing record, do you think he should still be in that MVP chat, or do you think that we're looking at Allen and Barkley and just take out the fact he's got those losses, just leave him out of it?
It's very hard. Like, yeah, he probably should be in it because it is the most valuable player. Yeah. And he is the most valuable player to that Bengals team. You know, he just hasn't had the supporting cast on defense, like you said, to get him the results that would probably have pushed him further up and given him the proper notoriety this season. You know, like if he has a better defense, they get more wins. And then if you've got more wins, then everyone's talking about you being like the savior, like, you know, like Allen. But because he hasn't got that, he probably will fall out of the conversation very quickly. And it's probably unfair because how bad would the Bengals have been without Joe Burrow?
Yeah.
You know, if he'd been out all year and they'd been relying on a backup, would they be going for the number 1 pick in next year's draft? The potential's there probably. So that alone puts you in an MVP category for me. So, yeah, he probably should be in that conversation.
So, Liam, can I bring it around to you on that one? So just, I'm looking at some of the stats for the QB. So this is obviously purely AFC. So Joe Burrow's leading for the full NFL in terms of passing, touchdowns, those kind of things. So he's leading across the NFL as a whole. He's at 3,706 yards. He's got 33 touchdowns with 6 interceptions. Just comparing them into his own conference, Lamar Jackson is somebody we've kind of mentioned probably in the MVP conversation. He's got 3,290 yards, 29 touchdowns, 3 interceptions. Josh Allen's 5th on this list. He's sitting at 3,033 yards, 23 touchdowns. I wish it was 23 interceptions, but 23 touchdowns.
There's
Do you think Burrow should? To be fair, it's Josh Allen, so there is still a chance. Do you think Burrow should actually? Are we doing a disservice here by just completely discrediting him in the MVP conversation, or do you think he should be in there?
I think he should be in there, but then there is some part of me like he's having to put up these numbers because his defense is so bad. Would he be putting up these numbers if he had a competent defense? You know, sure, he maybe, you know, getting shorter fields, getting, you know, his touchdowns maybe similar, but he won't be having to throw so many times in the game. Because what did he throw in this game? 44 times he had to throw in this game. So that's a hell of a lot to be throwing. And I'm sure it's probably maybe not quite that numbers, but I'm sure it's similar to a few other games this season he's had to do. So, you know, a fair play, you know, to be able to do that and have that little, you know, he had 6 interceptions in the year, was it, did you say, or something like that?
Yeah, 6 interceptions, yeah.
That's pretty impressive to be able to throw that ball many times and have that little number of interceptions. So, yeah, he should be, I think he probably should be in, but it's really a kind of popular vote, isn't it? It's what's current at the time. It's not really an MVP vote, if we're all honest with you know, how it all works, but hey.
Well, but interesting to see, actually. I genuinely didn't realise his stats were as good until I looked at that. Didn't realise he was leading the league and passing and touchdowns, things like that as well. So maybe Stu's winning is over, but trying to kind of get us to think about it for MVP conversation.
Get campaign posters out, you know.
Running around Edmonton, vote Joe. Oh, right. So obviously that game we mentioned had the massive turning point at the end. Anything else you want to cover? Bengals Cowboys. We're quite happy, and we'll rattle through some of the other results.
Yep.
No.
Yeah, cool. Hey, so I'm just going to rattle through these guys. If there's anything you kind of want to kind of mention, then just sort of jump in. So we've got Jaguars beating the Titans 10-6. Genuinely don't think anyone was watching that game, even you as a AFC South fan, Graham.
Yeah, so that was probably the worst game of the week.
Yeah.
And these guys have got to do it again at the end of the year. You know, so if you thought this game is bad, it's going to be even worse by the end of the year. I would love to see the numbers of people attending that game. Honestly, that might set an all new record. But I'm just annoyed that the Titans have decided to stop scoring points again. You know, they haven't scored more than 15 since September till they played us when they put up like 32 points against us, and then they went back to form the week after and scored like no points, and now they're even scoring less. So I don't know if they're trying to average out from the points that they scored against us in the other games now, that they're still on for like 15 points a game, you know. But yeah, woeful. I think there's another conversation to be had about the Jags are probably I think a better team with Trevor Lawrence on IR.
Ooh.
That, you know, and that happened because of obviously what happened in our game against them, and that was a big, massive talking point. But yeah, after Lawrence went out in that game, I think the Jags are a better team without him. That's just my take on that, and they've proved it again they got a win, and they almost pegged us in that game as well with him being down the tunnel. So yeah, that's maybe a bright spark. They've got maybe a decent other QB there.
And Matt Jones as well.
Exactly.
I think it's interesting to see they've got to play each other again. Surely that's a game for the number one pick. I'm looking at the standings. So the two of them are sitting at 3-10. Believe it or not, the Giants are the number one pick just now at 2-11, with the Raiders sitting at 2-11. And then you've got Panthers, Patriots, Titans, Jets, Jags, Browns, all on 3-10. So you'd imagine the Jags and Titans, that could be a potential number one pick ball, that one, when they meet again. So moving on, we've got Jets, Dolphins, overtime win for the Dolphins, 32-26. Again, the Jets, we know what the Jets are at this point. I think what I found quite kind of funny in this one was that the Dolphins finally remembered they had Jonnu Smith in overtime. I think I was playing against him in fantasy, and he had no points whatsoever, and then all of a sudden he was like their entire drive and the touchdown, just to really piss me right off, which was just an absolute nightmare. Again, I'm not going to waste too much time in that one. So Falcons travelling into Minnesota, obviously with Kirk Cousins returning home. Minnesota just absolutely destroyed them, 42-21.
Yeah.
Kirk Cousins throwing more interceptions. Jordan Addison and Justin Jefferson. Go on, Liam.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I saw some stat about like Cousins' last 4 games has scored 0 touchdowns and 8 interceptions. Apparently, is his last 4 games or something like that. So it's a bit troubling for old Cousins over there.
Yeah, I think a few folk are maybe kind of thinking, should we give Michael Penix a chance at this stage? But they've invested a lot of money in Kirk Cousins. I don't see it happening personally, given how much they've invested in him. But it could be worth a talking point, especially if those numbers continue.
I think it'd be a brave. I can see where it's coming from. I think it'd be a brave move when they're still in the mix to get the division. I think, aren't they? So to bring in a rookie right at this point, I think it'd be a brave step.
I think they're one game back for the Bucks, so they're not out yet by any stretch of the imagination. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see if they can turn it around and push the Bucks now. But you've got also Sunday we had the Saints Giants, so Saints winning 14-11 at the Giants. Again, not exactly barn burner on that one. I think the most interesting thing to come out of that was Derek Carr fracturing his hand. But aye,
it's another block field goal. That was the only fun thing from that game.
There's been loads.
Yeah. Was it that? Was that the game that Malik Neighbours supposedly got asked if he paid for the plane that flew over this and telling them to sell the team or something? Or
I think I did say, was it this week? I did see the picture of the plane.
This week, or was that the week before? He was definitely answering questions about it this week.
I think it was this week. I'm sure it was actually. And I remember seeing the photo. I think it was this week.
And he said something like, "No, I didn't pay for the plane." But did the Saints not sign a quarterback? Did they?
Have they picked somebody up? Because they just it wasn't Spencer Rattler that came in. I can't remember who it was that came in actually.
They've Ben DiNucci.
Ben DiNucci.
Yeah. So and it come from it was on Twitter or something or X that it was on, and it said that he'd signed for the Saints, and it said source myself in brackets pretty credible. So
nice.
Yeah.
Fair point,
so yeah, that's who they brought him in. Whether or not that's just for a rotation guy, to keep the numbers up. So you've got cover in that. But
I think if you've got a fractured hand, it's going to. I know it's his non-throwing hand, but even still, when you'd struggle to take the snaps if you've got a broken hand, surely. So
it can't be like a defensive end, and make it like a ball. The defensive ends do. You've got to have that kind of motion in your hand. So.
Aye, I think you'll be lucky to see Derek Carr again this season.
Yeah.
Right, so Panthers get into Philadelphia, probably causing a bit of a surprise. Panthers were leading for a portion of this game, so eventually lost 22-16. I think the most interesting thing to kind of come out of this one was, I don't know if you've seen AJ Brown talking in the dressing room after it, where he's been moaning about how bad the passing game's been, and then Brandon Graham's went on a podcast and basically said he doesn't know what's going on with Hurts and AJ Brown. They used to be friends, but they need to just kind of figure it out type thing. For me, I don't get this. Obviously, I understand wide receivers are always a bit devish, no matter who they are. Your team's won 9 games on a bounce. You guys are absolutely motoring. You're pushing the lines for the number 1 seed. You have a word with your head coach. You have a word with your offensive coordinator. You don't go bitching to the press about how bad the passing game is. Surely that's an internal, you deal with it. And again, Brandon Graham shouldn't have been saying what he said. This is a dressing room leader. He should be one of the guys in there getting them to resolve it rather than airing that out in the media. What's your guys' takes on that one? Liam, come to you first.
I think like you. I think it's Eagles kind of seem to always do this at this point in the season. Though there seems to always be something that comes up, or someone gets to the media and they just start fighting among themselves a bit to some degree. It's, and as you say, like Graham should know, like he's a veteran player, he should know not to say that stuff, or if he's going to say it, make it a bit more subtle than how he put it. So, it's they're still a good. Eagles are still a team you don't really want to face in the playoffs at any points, but you just start to wonder what the kind of culture is in the club, I suppose, in some degree. How it's behind the scenes a bit more. They're getting a win, so everyone's happy, but if they start losing a game or two, does that suddenly compound itself more and more with any sort of culture issues that are maybe behind whatever's going on?
Definitely. Graham, you get any thoughts on AJ Brown having your own diva wide receiver in Houston?
Yeah, well, this is the thing with when it's a team game. It doesn't matter how the team gets the win; it gets the win. And just because you're not being used to what you believe is your full potential, and you're not the headline guy in every game, like for me, if it was, I'd be happy to be on a winning team, regardless of how much I'm used. I'll go out and I'll do my job, and I'll do it quietly, and I'll do it well. Just because you're not getting the numbers that you think I don't know, maybe help you get a better contract in your next contract negotiation or something. That's by the by, you know. What will get you a better contract in the next one is whether or not you've got another ring on your finger.
Yeah.
You know, you bring that in your CV and you're going to get decent money. So I don't think it should be aired in that way. But the culture at the Eagles doesn't seem to be the best just now. You know, there's a lot of talk also about, is it Sirianni, like, and how it's not like the most pleasant place to be sometimes, and he's not the best head coach to get along with, just like reports that you read coming out. So yeah, the Eagles seem to have some issues, but if you would take a minute, like Bryce Young's, I'm glad to see he's having like what looks like a bit of a resurgence on what seemed everyone had got him on the scrap heap, hadn't they, after last season and that.
Yep.
He seems to have come back this year after being benched, and he seems to have taken the team on. It's like the team believe in him more now as well. His own teammates believe in him, so it's great to see that. Because Tom Brady said sometimes you can't just throw these guys in and expect them to be hot right off the beginning, and some guys just need that little bit longer. And he might have been one of those guys, but yeah, no, I'm glad to see him doing some things and maybe building up his confidence again.
Yeah, no, definitely. I think over the last kind of 4 weeks, he's certainly had a resurgence. I know he was very, very good against the Chiefs. I think he'd had a decent week last week as well, and then, as you said, he looked decent this week as well. So no, it is nice. And you mentioned obviously guys having resurgence. You just need to look at a guy like Sam Darnold. His confidence must have been as low as it's possibly been. Found his way to Minnesota. Obviously, JJ McCarthy got injured, and Sam Darnold has been flying for Minnesota for the majority of the season. Yeah, he's had the odd wee blips now and again, but he has, in that Kevin McCall offense, he's been absolutely unbelievable for them. And again, he showed it against the Falcons this week. Right, so just a couple more results just to kind of touch on then. So Browns Steelers, again, divisional game. Steelers taking that one 27-14. Wasn't really much of a match on this one, to be honest. I think since there was no snow, Jameis obviously didn't want to play for whatever reason, but it's Steelers pretty convincing in that one. Similar story with the Bucks and the Raiders, 28-13 for the Bucks as well. Again, didn't really seem like there was going to be anything other than a Bucks win in this one. They obviously take the lead in the division now, so it's their division to kind of throw away. Seahawks beating the Cardinals in Arizona. Seahawks taking the division lead on that one, so they're now one game ahead of the LA Rams. And I think the Seahawks have been kind of sneaky, putting together a good wee run of games over the last kind of few weeks and getting themselves into that position. Obviously now they're in pole position for a home playoff game as well. Seahawks, what do you think? Are they a team that can maybe do something in the playoffs, or is it just a case of that division keeps cutting its own throat?
I think that, as you say, I think that defense is kind of stiffened a bit, if you want to call it that, for a better phrase. And Gino's been playing pretty well most of the season, really. I think if you look at his stats, he's doing pretty well. So I think their team, like away from home, I can't what the records away from home. Maybe the record away from home is all right, but you know, you don't really want to see them at home. They all seem to have that, all the 12th man and all that sort of stuff. But in some ways, I was like, it was more than the Cardinals this game. I thought the Cardinals, I don't know, they seem to be floundering a bit. They started off, they got that touchdown straight off the back, I think, and then Kyle, I think, threw 2 interceptions again, and they just, I don't know, they're more of a worry than maybe the Seahawks, how far they would go. I'm more worried the Cardinals are just kind of floundering a wee bit now, sort of thing.
Yeah, I think the Cardinals, their defence started the season pretty hot, and I think the last few weeks they've really been pretty poor. Obviously, Kyler had, I think it might have actually even been back-to-back interceptions, to be honest, but it was certainly 2 very quick interceptions he threw, which just really seemed to kill the Cardinals in that one. What about you, Graham? Do you think the Seahawks are a team that can maybe do something in the playoffs, or are they just going to be kind of making up the numbers a little bit?
I'm going to lean more on the making up the numbers. Like Geno Smith's been really steady this year for them, and probably what they've been needing. Because we always remember, like in the last recent years, or recent memory anyway, the Seahawks have been one of those teams that have been there or thereabout. The more recent memory, they've kind of fallen off the planet a wee bit. Gino has kind of steadied them this year, maybe giving them the building blocks to more success in seasons to come. But I can see them probably, I'm going to say that they'll probably win this division. But I don't think they're going to pose much threat, especially when you come up against the North. The North seems to... Someone's going to have to go through one of the NFC North teams on that side. You're going to have to go through them. They're so strong this year. So, yeah, I think they'll just make up the numbers.
Yeah, I think it's certainly going through the NFC North for the Seahawks is exactly what they need to do in the next 3 weeks. They've got the Packers, Vikings, and the Bears. And then they finish up with the Rams at home. At the Rams, I should say. So, yeah, we'll see. It'll be interesting to see if the Packers can hand them one this weekend. Then maybe the wheels come off a bit. But so just the last two games then. So the Bears absolutely floundering to the 49ers. The 49ers 38, Bears 13 again. There's no massive amounts to kind of take away from that game. And then the last game was Sunday Night Football. You had the Chargers travelling into my own team, the Arrowhead, keeping the hopes of the Arrowhead Invitational alive. The Chiefs sealed the division with a beautiful doink off the upright to win the game, 19-17. I'm not going to lie, when I seen that kick leave his foot, my jaw dropped because I seen it was going left straight away, and I was like, oh shit, we've done this to every other team this year. It's going to happen to us. But no, it bounced the right side, fortunately for us. But yeah, so that kind of, and as I say, feel free to jump in, guys, if there's anything I've missed. But that kind of rounds up the review. And I don't know if you've got any kind of final points you want to add.
Do you think the Chiefs' luck is going to run out at the wrong time this year? Because you've been riding it hard all season.
We have ridden our luck very hard. I'm not going to lie about that. I think the Leo Chanel play, I take that out of the luck side of it, the block field goal in the Broncos. I think that was a good scheme. I think they'd spotted something, they'd spotted a weakness. So I take the Chanel block out of it. But things like the Raiders fumble, obviously the doink there for ourselves, things like that, then ultimately your luck has got to run out at some point. I just hope it's maybe the start of next season or something like that.
I generally feel like the old WCW script writers have been writing your story this year, because the storylines are so wild in your games. It's like, really, are the NFL really just wanting the Chiefs to three-peat or something here because they're giving them everything?
It's what I've kind of noticed, the games that we have won, the sort of tighter games, especially when we're in control of the ball. What I've loved is the fact that whenever we're driving down the field, it's always in Mahomes' hands. We're not handing it off to Hunt to run. It's always, you give your best players the ball. So it's, you look at that one there, it was literally, the play was drawn up. It was Mahomes throwing to Kelsey, and Kelsey just sat there, waited for somebody to touch him, so because he knew he was in position. No thoughts of trying to get down the field and get a touchdown. It was literally, no, I'm happy with this position. Kneel down, somebody taps him. Mahomes breaking off a big run in one of the other games as well. It's always coming down to Mahomes, and there's nobody else I would really trust with it. So I'm happy with that thought process, but you obviously hope the luck doesn't run out. But we'll see what happens.
One more for you. If Mahomes is trying to sneak that first down and he fake slides it and he's got Al-Shahir coming at him, do you hope he slides?
Oh, absolutely. I've seen that.
You know what I mean? Because
all day.
I think what Mahomes has done is that's why things like what happened to Trevor Lawrence has happened, because he sneaks it right at the death. He fakes that, the defense pulls off him, and then he gets like an extra 10.
Yeah.
So,
I'm wanting Mahomes down. I've seen it a few years ago where he picked up injuries and things like that, where you're getting rolled up on and stuff. I want a fit and healthy Mahomes every single day of the week. Yeah. So, right, on that note, guys, that brings us to an end. So I will say thank you very much, Liam, for joining in tonight and chatting through the review.
No, it's always good to chat to you guys. Always good to chat football.
Good stuff, my man, good stuff. And the travelling kilted Texan, Graham, thank you very much for joining us, my man.
No, brilliant, lads. Like talking ball with you and having a laugh at the same time.
Good stuff, good stuff. Well, that's us, and we will be back on Thursday with our preview crew. So until then, guys, thanks very much for joining us and listening online. And don't forget to give us a like on subscribe on all of your various social medias. And we'll catch you next time.